Good evening, everyone. The last 10 years, the Indian economy has gone through several upheavals, uh, starting with the demonetization, to the COVID pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war, and of course, now we have the, the West Asia crisis that's going on. In between, we had the US tariff war that was going on. Thankfully, the Indian economy has been quite resilient, and we still continue to be the fastest growing economy in the world. But one segment that has been very badly hurt in all these episodes is the MSME segment, with the profits being compromised and revenue growth falling and cash flows getting reducing. So the segment has been hurt in all these episodes, and the need for financing typically tends to increase in all these episodes. So how do the companies, the MSMEs, navigate these kind of episodes? How do they finance their needs? To answer all these questions, we have our eminent panel with us. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. So, Mr. Karthikeyan, I'd like to start with you. You are the immediate past president of CODISSIA and also run your own firm, Sukshma Dynamics. So I'd like to ask you, how have the last 12 months been for the MSMEs, particularly the last 3 months with the West Asia crisis? And which sectors, which industries among the MSMEs have been more badly hurt? And are they all feeling a need for additional finance in these times?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Yes, as I was heading CODISSIA for the last 2 years. And in the last 2 years, the MSMEs have had a lot of difficulties. Ma'am, you are talking about just these 12 months, but I would say last 20 years we have to take. So MSMEs, from the time from lathe to CNC, there was a transition, and from CNC, the MSMEs have not moved on for the last 20 years. So that's where the MSME trouble started up. I'm talking about 2000s. So what happened is, in the last, after the demonetization, MSMEs were short of funds. See, we talk about 31% of MSMEs are contributing to India's GDP. But what we need to understand is, what is the manufacturing MSMEs contributing overall? See, for if you take it as in the car manufacturing, the entire car parts are supplied by the MSMEs. Some cars 70% of the components, some cars 90% of the components. So if the country's economy is growing, it is not the 31% of the GDP alone. It is 70 to 90% of the MSMEs who are the backbone. So we contribute more than $1.25 trillion in MSMEs. So what happens is, when the MSMEs progress, what trouble they have is, like, they are not able to get the funds. See, earlier there was a calculation like 20 or 25% was the working capital for any MSME. Somehow the banks have arrived at based on the previous maybe 30 or 40 years of history. But what happens now? We have the Ukraine war, or you have the Strait of Hormuz closing. What will happen to the MSME? We need to have a lot of inventory. So the inventory has to be held. So what we need is funding. So the funding gap of MSMEs have widened largely. So I will just give you a brief. 32.93 lakh crore is the MSME funding in India. So if you see that, in the 32.93 crore, so what we need additionally, as per the RBI Standing Committee itself, during 2016, they had projected a funding gap of 20 lakh crore. Now that 20 lakh crore is now increased to 30 lakh crore. So what is happening is, MSMEs, we are talking about 7.34 lakh crore MSMEs, and only 2.43 crore MSMEs are under the loan schemes or anything. So the funding has to be improved. So one is, current working capital for the MSMEs is not to be gone by the percentage like 20%, 25%. Even the finance minister, ma'am, have mentioned 2 months ago, you identify the cluster-based approach. Maybe, if a company is in Sivagasi, they are doing, crackers, they need funding for 10 months. and the loan they may not be able to pay the EMI. So you have to tailor-make the banking system. So that's what you need to work out for. So a cluster-based approach where it is more successful. For example, in China, the cluster base is more efficient and efficiently laid out. So that in that idea, we need to move on. So the MSMEs have to look out for new technologies. So we are talking about AI, upgradation of machineries. We have not upgraded in the last so many years. And what happens is we need funds for it. So you need term loans. But if you see on a pan-India basis, the manufacturing sector, even though we say MSMEs contribute to 31% of India's GDP, what happens is the manufacturing sector is getting very less funds. Only 35% of the fund is given on term loans or machinery loans, which means only 13 lakh crore is given as loans to machineries. The other 20 lakh crore, which on the total 32.93, is given to working capital. But still, MSME is not getting the required working capital. So what we have to understand is complete banking system has to be looked into in a new perspective. So when I presented to the finance minister in November 2025, I said, entire MSME calculations, even on the budget of 2025 February, she had said the conventional system of banking, like based on turnover and asset-based funding, has to be looked into. But that is really not implemented even after 1.5 years of the budget review. And also to make a bankers committee. That's what she has announced in the present budget in February 2026, on 1st of February. So what the entire government is understanding is that the MSME funding has to be improved because we are the backbone. We employ 32 crore people. So if the Indian economy has to reach $5 trillion, we have to head towards empowering the MSMEs. So this will be my first ad. So the next round, maybe I will add.
I was asking about which industries have been more hurt in the last 12 months?
Ma'am, if you see, the foundries have been more affected because they export larger components to the US, especially after the tariff 25% to 50% tariff was laid to the MSMEs, especially India, not MSMEs alone. So what has happened is the foundries got affected more in Coimbatore, I would say. If you see in Tirupur, the garment industry exports got affected. So it depends on what we mainly contribute to. So Coimbatore have around 15,000 crore of exports, and the majority of, maybe I would say 40 to 50% of the exports go to the US. So that garment export has affected. The components based on precision manufacturing and foundries, those were affected. And also the earth moving equipments. The America is one country where they buy larger components or the bigger components. A component weighing 20 tons or 40 tons, they are the people who have heavier equipments. So these, you cannot buy you cannot find an alternate customer or an alternate country where you can venture into. So these places are struck, and these industries are struck. There is no alternate market. And of course, you would see ECGC, export credit guarantee. They were giving us statistics that earlier the number of MSMEs who used to export to countries outside India were like 25 or 30 countries. Now they have explored around 60 to 80 countries. So new markets are getting explored. We are looking at Asian market, Southeast Asian market, and African market, but it will take time. And at this time, we need funding also from the bankers. So everything is a link, ma'am.
Okay, I'd like to ask you, since you work with Sundaram Finance and also with the MSME segment itself, So how has the growth been? Because when I look at the RBI's credit growth numbers, it's pretty strong in both in the medium as well as small and micro industries. So how has the growth been, and how has the NPA levels moved in the last 12 months? Can you give us some numbers on that?
Sure, ma'am. Just to refer, I think it's good to sort of check where we were a year back, and we were at 35 lakh crores was the portfolio that MSME were actually being managed. This year, well over into April, we are 46 lakh crores and counting. That accounts to almost like 12.8% in terms of growth over the period. But this 12 months, I would request to sort of dissect in two parts. One till December, April to December, where I think there was a very euphoric sort of a growth rate in terms of credit offtake. 18 to 20% is where I'll peg that number. And thereafter, which from say January onwards till now, I think we have sort of seen one of the slowest credit growths at 3.6%. So that's something that gives enough highlights for us to understand where things have actually slowed down. I think the deferment of capex across many of these particular units is clearly visible. That does not take away the fact that there has been a demand for funds. But like Mr. Karthikeyan said, those funds are more required in the working capital requirements that we are seeing. So that predominantly even now is not fully met. And in our own back of the envelope calculations, OPEX requirement of at least 4 months to 6 months have additionally got landed up into most of the MSME segments. That's a number that most of the bankers and lenders, both in this room and otherwise, need to sort of reflect on. So that's one area. Coming to the stress levels that we were to talk in terms of NPA, again the same sort of numbers are there. I think the second part that you look, the NPA numbers have risen. Just to quote those particular numbers, we are in the 26 FI, 4.46 is the NPA number in the MSME segment. Compare this with last year, we were 3.4, 3.5%. This accounts to roughly a 15 to 20% increase in the stress level indicators that we are actually measuring. If I were to look at it from a micro segment, those are the ones which have got the maximum hit. 65% of the total new NPA that have landed up is coming from that particular segment. It's not affected too much on the medium category. They have been very steady. Small has been sort of managing this particular thing, but micro segments did get affected a lot in this particular segment. Within that, if I were to divide between working capital and term loans, I think the working capital numbers are for NPAs are closer to 6.2% to 7.5%. That's the range. Whereas for term loans, that's been more steady at 3.8%. So that's where we are. Within that, I think private banks managed a very good number, 2.3%. And I think that's largely because of the choice of enterprises that they chose to lend. PSUs had 4.2, almost double than that of private banks. But that also because of the several requirements that they do towards the priority sector lending. And then we have NBFCs, which are at 6.5%. So those are the numbers. A little bit unsettling when we read these numbers now, but a year back things were very different. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Those numbers. Mr. Karthikeyan, I'll come back to you because Mr. Kumar, I think, is still stuck in traffic. So can you tell me what are the various avenues that MSMEs are able to tap in these stressful last 3 months? Like you're all saying that it was a little more stressful for the people. So besides, is it primarily banks and NBFCs, or is there any other channel that you people look at for raising funds?
No, Mr. Jairam Varadarajan sir was telling about the equity. So that is MSME equity fundraising is being now thought of. So even the conclaves here also last 2-3 months out, the MSMEs can go into IPOs. So MSME IPO is one thing where MSMEs who are in small and medium, they can think of venturing into the IPOs. But it is going to be a time process. That's what we understand. Conclaves like that had helped MSMEs to explore. But the other part is not only the... So we would say...
welcome, Mr. Kumar. Yeah, please, you can.
Okay. So not only the equity part which we are exploring, we have to look at alternate funds. Earlier, remember, you have to understand the earlier system. MSMEs in Coimbatore, if you see, getting a loan from the bankers was very tougher in the initial stages. Okay, so what they had is they had the alternate method of going for non-banking financial institutions. Then came the majority of loans in the micro sector is still on jewel and other loans. I would say 60% of the loans are still in jewel loans. They prefer.
You mean gold loans?
On the loan. So you are asking about the alternate method of funding. Say they prefer jewel, and it is a safer method of getting the loan. That couldn't be changed by the bankers also. The banks are ready to give the funds, but most of the MSMEs, especially the micros, I would say, I will not say small. They are. That's why when RBI had given a notification last year that there is a restriction on jewel loan, immediately every MSME started shouting, because they never tell out what their problem is. I'm talking about only micros, not the small or medium. So the bankers would really say, accept what I would say. The alternate thing is IPOs, and we have to look at banking sector giving more loans, and that's the only way we have to rely. Banking can only support us MSMEs for the growth.
So welcome, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, ma'am, and my sincere apology for being late due to traffic.
Yeah, not a problem. So you, of course, you are Joint Secretary of Tirupur Exporters Association. So I'd like to bring you in on this. What are the alternate avenues? Because he spoke about equities. Is corporate bonds also an option? Because now that people are going for more of these bonds are also getting coming into play. The lower rated bonds people are going for. Are you also considering that? And what's the kind of excitement about the MSME platform, equity platform itself?
Basically, if I talk about the background of Tirupur, Tirupur is about 95% are MSMEs, and MSMEs, if you can classify, the turnover of a company starts from ₹1 crore per annum. Another company will be doing around 10 crore per annum, and another company will be doing about 30 to 40 crores, and it ranges. You name anything between 1 crore to 4,000 crore, Tirupur is there. So 95% are MSMEs, that is below 100 crores. To be very precise, if I would say the last financial turnover of Tirupur is about 45,000 crores, of which 200 companies have completed 22,000 crores. So rest of the 2,400 companies contributed for rest of the 23,000 crores, I would say. So there are again domestic players where we contribute about another 30,000 crore. And for us, as far as the finance is concerned, for MSMEs like us, to be very honest, all these bonds and equities are still Greek and Latin for us. We have to have a lot of education on it, and we have to sensitize the industry from the root level about different avenues of generating finance. So this is the thing. And even top companies which are doing more than 500 crores are still reluctant to come into this kind of a platform. Because export, again, as I would say in every stage, as far as the exports are concerned, we are running a glorified tailoring shop. We are not having our own brands marketed in US or Europe or in any of the markets. And we are just supplying to the brands. You name any brand in the world, we are supplying to the brands. And since the competitive countries are again coming up, like Pakistan has gone a long way. Myanmar is coming up now. The size of the requirement is the same. I mean, the size of the requirement bowl is the same, but the number of hands going is more and more. So it is again tough for us to look into all these kind of finance. Instead, we are running behind the challenges of getting more orders and keep our factories. Apart from all these last 10 years, as I was watching in live, as Mr. Karthik mentioned, last 20 years, it is a very big challenge for the industry. particularly the MSME sector.
Okay, so let's talk about this ECLGS 5 that the government announced to help the MSMEs, the Emergency Credit Loss Guarantee Scheme, where I think up to 100 crore an MSME can get. And according to numbers, they say, I think about 2.55 lakh crore has been allocated. And latest numbers, they say 48,000 crores have been guaranteed worth that has been given. So how, Mr. Kumar, I'll stay with you. So how useful are these schemes? Are companies able to avail of this, or is there some problem on the ground in actually getting the benefits from this kind of schemes?
No, absolutely. I would definitely give a great credit to our union government for giving this scheme. It is really a hand-holding support for the MSMEs. And as you mentioned rightly, the 2.55 lakh crores, of which I have collected the data yesterday, it was about 2.25 lakh crore of application they have received so far. But the unfortunate scenario is the southern part of India, particularly this Kongu region, the applications are very low. I was talking to one of the regional manager of a public sector bank, and he was mentioning that in his region, he received around, there are the eligibility of MSME to avail this particular loan is about 2,400 MSMEs can avail as per their list, of which they have received only 400 applications. On the 400 applications, they have sanctioned all the 400 applications, but only 225 people have availed it. The rest of them have not availed it. They kept the sanction just like that. And again, if you ask me as an exporter, apart from the Joint Secretary of the Association, if you ask me as an exporter, I am ready to take the loan, the ECGLS scheme. Definitely, yes, I am ready to take the loan. But it is quite unfortunate if I take the loan and I repay my dues with the bank and with the debtors and everything. But I need orders to run my factory to repay all these loans. That is a challenge now because the uncertain situation with the US, particularly on the this latest developments on the Iran war and all those things. This supply chain disruption, at least it will take maximum of 1 year to get back to the normal scenario. By the time all the competitive nations are giving a lot of grants to their manufacturing sector, and they are much more competitive than us. So this uncertainty are preventing us to take all these loans, though the government wants us to help and give more loans to us. And when the question comes of repayment, definitely there is a challenge for us.
Okay, another problem with the MSMEs, I think, is giving collaterals for the loans. That's a major problem that many MSMEs face. So, Mr. Rahul, I'd like your views. So there is a thought that why not use cash flow data? Because we get a lot of data these days from UPI and GST and so on. Why can't that data be used to evaluate an MSME's creditworthiness and give loans? What is your thought on that?
I think that's an idea whose time has come. Because I think most of the MSMEs are run down on all their collateral. I think it's either with the bank or the specific thing that they have sort of done this. Having said so, to do that, I think a lot of things goes back to what Dr. Jaipal sir said in terms of the compliance and governance that MSEs will have to enforce upon themselves. I think a couple of these cash flow related products that are there in the market and which even CGT MSE is also saying that you could devise products on that, relies on cornerstones of how good your bureau scores are, how good your cash value that you're showing in the particular bank, how good is your GST flow being proper, fit, and in time that you're able to show. And most important in terms of how your ITRs are also getting shaped up. So a good amount of, I think, voluntary disclosures and ensuring that cash is good, but cash if showed into the bank is better for you to get not only a line of credit, but also rates which are much more cheaper than what they're currently availing through unsecured loans. So I think those sorts of schemes can be created by, banks as well as NBFCs under the CGTMSE framework. And I think that's on the forefront of most of the innovative financials that are there. I think that's an important line that all of us are working towards. Because I think during this working capital crunch that we have seen in the last 3-4 months, most of them were actually sort of consolidating most of the land holdings for the ODCC accounts. That is where you are able to sort of get additional line. But beyond which they were finding it quite tough to sort of generate cash flow. And in the anvil of uncertainty, the inventory stocking that you need to do, the timeliness that you don't know when your receivables are coming, it has its own challenges. Aggravating this particular thing is also certain amount of responsible behavior that large companies need to show to MSMEs also. I wouldn't be wrong if I say the largest banker to large companies have been MSMEs. The last, if you look at it, roughly 20 to 45 days have increased in the overall, working capital cycle across. And bulk of this brunt has been borne by the MSMEs. And they are not in a position to sort of reject it, because if they reject, they face the challenge of actually losing the entire order. So they stay up to this particular thing, they're losing, and yet they are doing this particular thing. So it's time that actually both from a record sake, MSMEs do tend to get more compliant. Gone are the days where tax saving is the root formula for you to sort of manage your accounts. I think it should be a proper glass box where you are transparent and responsible. That way more lenders and more other avenues will keep coming to you. Whether it is bond, whether it is equity, whether it is banker, I think transparency will make a lot of difference. And that's to all of us sitting in this room that we need to do this.
Okay, and another problem I think is the money getting stuck with creditors, and creditors paying after 60 days and 90 days. So that's why the TREDS platform was introduced, I suppose. So Mr. Karthikeyan, I'd like you to go first, and then I'll ask Mr. Kumar about how do you think, how successful has TREDS been? Because RBI recently made some changes. They brought in TREDS platform. They brought in a lot of changes recently. So is there awareness enough about TREDS, and are people using it enough for discounting their bills and all that?
No, ma'am. Not much people, because trade receivables and discounting system. Every medium industry, turnover about 250 crores. Medium comes up to 500, but 250 crore is the mandate the bankers. The government are given for TREDS. The companies who have, when I was sitting with the finance minister, she said 18,600 crores. The bills were not accepted by the bankers. 75 bankers are enrolled in 5 TREDS platform, and they were not able to pay the bills because of either the medium or the large scale industry have not uploaded the bills in a proper way, and they have taken enough time, more than 45 days also, to upload the bill. But that is few large scale industries. This was a complaint. There was a complaint of like 10 lakh crore of government, public sector companies are holding MSME funds. This was a claim that had come 2 years ago to the finance ministry. So they introduced TREDS. So what they did is immediately they took 2 initiatives. One is TREDS. The other one is 43BH. That is payment to MSMEs in 45 days. 2 things have been taken by the Ministry of MSME and the Finance Ministry for improving the finance of the MSME. So this is, the government is taking steps. Also, what is happening is the awareness on TREDS, especially in the south, is very less. I did speak to a lot of the 5 M1 exchange. Everybody, I've been speaking to everyone. They said, sir, I don't know why. Even Coimbatore, you are saying 2.5 lakh MSMEs are there, but people are not ready to, the micro or the small industries not ready to enroll themselves in TREDS. That's the worst part. That's the complaint they are making. The medium industry and large industry are ready to pay the bills through TREDS, even though it is only 7% on an average is the rate of interest. You go and take a working capital, it is 8 to 9% or 9 to 10%. But in TREDS, the bankers are offering 7%, and still micros and smalls are reluctant to enroll themselves in the TREDS platform. This is the condition now, but as the fund crush comes up, I think people will change. We will move on to that because in the ECGLSC scheme also, ma'am, watching that. So there also, there was reluctance in the funds taking up. The MSMEs, 3 lakh crore was given last year, 25-26. And in that, Tamil Nadu had taken 20,000 crores. Okay, ma'am. And now I'm talking about CGTMSE, not ELCS. Okay, CGTMSE. And Coimbatore had taken 2,116 crores. We are contributing to 2% of India's manufacturing GDP. We are not taking 1% of the entire loan systems in the CGTMSE. So these are things which is to be improved in Coimbatore. Especially Coimbatore are very reluctant to get funds. Last year, 24-25 annual credit plan, 35,661 crores has to be given, ma'am, but only 32,600 crores have been taken by the MSMEs. MSMEs don't want funds. That's the feedback I got from the bankers. And when I ask a banker, sir, why you have not done the funding, sir? No, MSME is accepting our, the rate of interest is also
but
good.
Is it because they're taking gold loans, like you said? Or
yes, ma'am.
Or
That is because 98% of the micros are, 98% of MSMEs are micros. That is the reason. And under MSME...
Is it they're not thinking about expanding and they put
they
all
don't,
their plans
they don't,
on...
ma'am. They are very reluctant because...
Put the plans on the back burner.
Yes. And they are, that's what, ma'am, in Coimbatore, 1 lakh loans have been given, 2025-26. In that, 76,000 is micro, 13,000 to small, 11,000 accounts to medium. 1 lakh MSMEs have taken loan.
Okay. Mr. Kumar, you had some ideas about how to make threats more effective? Or?
As far as threats is concerned, it is not much helpful for the export companies. But of course, now there are no more export companies alone there. Since organized retail is growing in India, we need a lot of platforms like threats for bill discounting. But the main crux where we are facing is the buyer has to accept that if I am working with an organized retailer, and if I want to discount the bill, I want to inform the same to my retailer, and he has to accept that, okay, you can discount the bill through the threats. There is a lot of gap is there, and as Mr. Karthikeyan rightly said, industry has to be educated. Not only about the threats platform, all the bankers are trying very hard. In our association, at least every fortnight there will be an MSME outreach program by the lead bankers, by all the bankers. But still, there is a reluctancy in availing the loans by the MSME. Particularly about I should say that because of the uncertainty in the geopolitical situation and all those things are contributing to this.
I think we are running out of time. Can we quickly take maybe a couple of audience questions? Any comments or questions from the audience? Can we please, can you just raise your hand? We'll give the mic to you.
Sir, I am from a micro MSME. We are not going to trade means I have to deal with so many agencies. I have to deal with the bank. I have to deal with my customers. I have to deal with DIC. I have to deal with so many government organizations. Why I have to add one more organization and spend my time? That is the reason most micro industries are not going behind the trend.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks for that comment.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else, please? Okay, I think there are no questions. So thank you so much, gentlemen. We can talk a lot more about this, but there are a lot of... okay, one more question.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sudhakar. Basically, TRAD, it operates very popularly with the PSUs and, other bodies. The private entities, they are not, enforced it, this one. This is a very, very important point. There are a lot of corporates which is not onboarded with threats. And secondly, the awareness of, from the MSMEs. These are the two reasons. See, though, 250 and above, who is now, previously it was 500 crores and above, has to have TRED on board. Now it has been remodified and reclassified with the 250 crores and above. Whoever is doing the turnover of the corporates, they should have the TRED. But 90% of the corporates which is not enforcing this. Hence, they are not entertaining the people or the, bills from the MSMEs to onboard with them TRED. And secondly, they have to make the payment within 45 days times, precisely. Not even a single day, they can't, they cannot, default it. This is also a reason why corporates is not coming forward. TRED is really very, very good because, as Karthikeyan also said, you get a fantastic rate of interest. Ma'am, today, the most important thing, instead of funding, the rate of funding is very, very important for MSMEs. The rate of interest what MSME pays is much, much more than the corporates. The rate of interest is somewhere about 9 to 12% people are paying it. So this is where I think we need to address somewhere. Thank you.
That's a good point, sir. I think they got all the PSUs onto the TREDS platform, but as you're saying, the corporates are not there, so that's making a difficult.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Mr. Kumar. Mr. Kumar wanted to add something. We run out of time, sir.
Yeah. I just want to have use this platform to keep a request to Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India should come up with a separate policy for MSME sector. We cannot, MSME cannot come into this Basel III norms, which is really tough, even for the bankers, even for the MSMEs to avail the loans. And as Mr. Karthik in his initial conversation, he was mentioning about the ecosystem. MSME has to be looked into that particular, for example, Tirupur is a different ecosystem, Coimbatore is a different ecosystem. For example, automobile manufacturing is different, lathe manufacturing, the CNC is totally different, and even Sivagasi crackers is totally different. So bankers has to consider the proposals and the repayments according to the ecosystem and the nature of the industry. And all these industries, particularly in Tamil Nadu, has grown so well only because of the bankers. And now it is only because of these policies, MSMEs cannot able to move forward. So this is one request I want to keep in this platform, that Reserve Bank of India has to come up with a separate policy for MSMEs, and the bank manager on the branch level has to given more powers. And because now it is all completely centralized, and somebody sitting in the head office doesn't know about the background of the industry and the ecosystem, going by the books, end of the day, frustrating the bank manager, branch manager and the lender by saying a no after 45 days or 60 days of receiving the application. If this can be bridged, definitely there is a bigger growth for the MSMEs.
Thank you so much. We will close here. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen and insights.